since you're an expert on Senate procedure, your colleague Chris Matthews went on a rant a couple of weeks ago about Brett Kavanaugh, basically saying that the Democrats are wusses and they're not going to do what it takes to stop him. Indivisible is getting everybody all riled up about calling their senators. They're thinking that Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski are going to flip. They're not. And Howie Klein, who you probably know, his blog Down with Tyranny, he says the only way to do it is for the Senate to deny, the Democrats to deny the Senate a quorum and just not show up. Do you think that that's possible? And do you think there's any likelihood the Democrats are going to do it?
No, it's not possible, and they won't do it. Is everyone satisfied with that, or do you want a quorum? All right, so here's the deal. Lunch today was with someone I used to work with in the Senate, and one of the things that came up whenever you end up talking about the Senate is this just kind of amazing thing about how no one in the House understands the Senate, and no one in the Senate understands the House. It's as if Nantucket were on the other side of Africa from here, and I mean, it's unbelievably weird. It's the strangest thing I've ever encountered. I'll just as a resume footnote, I will point out that Chris Matthews worked in the House of Representatives. No, there is absolutely no parliamentary procedure that can stop this thing, and I was certain of that as soon as it erupted as a public issue. But, you know, I'm old and I forget a lot, so I spoke to the Senate parliamentarian about it. And I spoke to other parliamentarians. There's more than one. I mean, you know, Schumer has a parliamentarian and McConnell has a parliamentarian. So let's deal with, say, the quorum thing, which is the latest gimmick that somebody came up with, and Kevin De Leon, who is challenging Dianne Feinstein in California in her re-election, is enamored with this. And Kevin was the president of the California Senate, and I defer to him on all California Senate parliamentary questions, but he knows less about the United States Senate than anyone who helps park the cars in the Senate parking garage. So here's the way a quorum works. And watch C-SPAN. Now you're going to have to watch C-SPAN for this, okay? Because the lesson is on C-SPAN every single day in the Senate. Just turn it on C-SPAN 2, United States Senate, and don't move. You can't leave the House. This is going to take a while. If they're all talking, then you're just going to have to be patient. You're going to wait for them to stop. And at some point they will, because the senators, enough of them will end up going to a luncheon. So there'll be almost no action on the Senate floor, or actually down to zero action on the Senate floor. And what happens then when you're watching C-SPAN 2 is you hear this drone of a roll call of names to which no one's really answering. And it's a very slow drone. And so what happens when someone then wants to restart the engine on this basically idling vehicle is that someone will walk onto the Senate floor and say, Mr. President, I suggest the absence of a quorum. At which time that thing you were hearing in the background becomes serious. It's now an official quorum call, only because it was requested. So the only way you will actually get a quorum call in the United States Senate is to request a quorum call, which means a Democrat would have to come on to this Senate floor that they are all boycotting, much, by the way, to the just thrill and excitement of their constituents in Missouri who think that's great, you know, that Claire McCaskill's not going to work today. They think that looks great. So all the Democrats have left the building. Some Democrat's going to have to suggest the absence of a quorum, okay? So that won't happen. Then, if you actually get a quorum call to which the Republicans cannot technically muster the quorum, then they can, now that the Democratic senator has left, the next thing you hear when you're watching C-SPAN after someone's asked for a quorum call suggested the absence of a quorum, start doing that, the next words you will hear is, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed with. And every single time it is, okay? So the Democrats have left the building. Now the Republicans ask unanimous consent that you stop doing this stupid quorum thing, and you stop. And now, with no Democrats in the building, they can vote on the Supreme Court justice by unanimous consent without even having a roll call vote. So, I mean, there's nothing in any of these procedures. I would say, because of the kind of stuff you've heard people say, what the Democrats are under is the pressure to look like they're doing something when it's impossible to do anything. And that's a political pressure that they, each party finds themselves under at different times. The truth is, it is entirely up to Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and no one else. That's it. And every moment of putting pressure on the Democrats is a moment when you're not putting pressure. Susan Collins loves this. I mean, Susan Collins, I'm sure, loved what Chris had to say that day. And I'm sure Lisa Murkowski loved it. Because any time you're saying it's not up to Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, they're thrilled. They are getting off that hook, and they're getting to play this the way Susan Collins especially has always played it, which is I'm pro-choice, and Roe versus Wade is settled law, and now let me vote for the next person who's opposed to it, next guy who's opposed to it, because they're all guys.